Hi guys, welcome to my channel Simply Michelle. And if you're here for the first time, I have been reading the book called The Promise, written by moi, of course. And there are quite a few videos if you're here for the first time that you may want to catch up on so you can get abreast of where the story is at and where it is going. So without itching, let's get right into it. Over the next few days, a gentle rhythm settled over the house. Morning started with a quiet breakfast. Brent still didn't say much, but he never missed a meal. Tessa would always have something warm and ready before he even stepped into the kitchen. It's as if she'd been up waiting for him. She didn't ask too many questions, just greeted him with a soft morning, sweetheart, and gave him, the space to be. Ben, on the other hand, had took to inviting Brent out on small errands, not too many, for just the hardware store in town or a quick trip to the market for fresh bread. At first, Brent stayed quiet in the passenger seat, eyes always on the road ahead. Shoulders tense, like he was waiting for something to go wrong. But Ben didn't push. He talked about the lodge, his plans to build a small greenhouse in the backyard, even told stories about Tessa's attempt at planting basil that somehow turned into Squirrel's buffet. Brent cracked a smile by the third strip. One afternoon, after helping Ben fix a loose board on the back porch, Ben sat back on his heels and wiped his hands on his jeans. "You really like fixing stuff, huh?" he said, his voice steady for once. Ben glanced at him, surprised by the question, but pleased. "Yeah," he said, tapping the drill on his thigh. "Something about taking what's broken and putting it right again makes the world feels manageable," said Ben. Brent nodded slowly, then quietly added, "I used to help my dad fix my bike when I was younger. He made me hold the flashlight, always said I had the shakiest hand in the country," said Brent. Ben grinned. "That's a dad thing to say. Bet you got steadier with time, huh?" asked Ben. Brent gave a small shrug, but there was the shadow of pride in his eyes. He looked down at his hands. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now." "You don't have to figure that out all at once," said Tessa gently. "Just take today, one moment at a time. You're not alone in this," said Tessa. The words sat between them like warm blanket. And that night, Brent didn't retreat to his room after dinner. He stayed on the porch with Ben and Tessa, sipping tea while the cicadas hummed and fireflies blinked in the trees. He didn't say much, but he stayed, and that for now was enough. The following day, Ben handed it over, his voice calm. "Want to try?" "Just ease it along the edge there." The boy hesitated for a breath, then nodded. His hands, once unsure, wrapped around the tool with surprisingly steadiness. As the rotor buzzed to life, he guided it along the edge of a slab of cedar they salvaged, carving out a clean, even grove. When he looked up again, there was a flicker of light in his eyes. Ben gave a low whistle. That's clean work. You know, Brent, you have got the feel for it. Brent shrugged, but there was a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I like it. It's focused and quiet. Ben grinned. That's the same reason I fell in love with this kind of work. Even though I just do it in my part-time and I have to be careful with my hands as a doctor, there's something about making something with your hands, fixing things or building. It gives you room to think or breathe, said Ben. We already talked to someone. Applications are still open. You could start in the fall if you want it. Brent blinked, overwhelmed. You did that? For me? He asked. Ben leaned forward, his tone firm but kind. You have been showing up. You have been trying. That means something. You deserve the chance to build something for yourself, not just survive, expressed Ben. For a long moment, Brent was quiet. His eyes were wet, but he didn't let the tears fall. He nodded slowly, his voice thick. I think I do love art, and I think art is my passion. But I think I love this too, and I want to try. I don't know if I'll be any good, like how I'm good at my artwork, responded Brent. Tessa reached out and placed her hand over his. You are already good. I see the way you hold those tools and the way you operate, Brent. We see it. You have just got to believe it too, said Tessa. And for the first time in a long time, he did. Not completely, not yet, but enough to ask anything. The week leading up to Brent's first day of school were filled with quiet transitions, the kind that gently reshaped the household in ways no one said aloud. The front porch, once just a spot for morning coffee, had become the place for long evening talks. The living room, where laughter had once echoed only between Ben and Tessa, now held Brent's late night chuckles while watching reruns with Ben or working on sketches for his future art projects. Little by little, he had even carved out a space in their home and in their hearts. Ben took to introducing Brent at the hardware store and around town as the younger man helping me out at the lodge. But folks have started to pick up on something deeper. Tessa's a close friend, which people like to see her as the gossiper, Miss Lorna, had said it outright one Sunday after church. When Brent stood between the couple, quiet but content. You all might not have birthed that boy, but he belongs to you just the same, said Miss Lorna. One would see her as being a meddler, but she have a point. Tessa smiled, her fingers brushing Brent's shoulder, and simply replied, yes, he does, with pride. That closeness deepens as the months rolled on. The Olin have plused with new rhythm, meals around the table, Study sessions after dinner, spontaneous dance parties in the kitchen when Tessa's favorite songs came on the radio. Oh, she loves her gospel, her contemporary gospel, and her worship courses. Laughter became normal again, and healing through quiet, ongoing, was everywhere. But beneath it all, something had shifted in Tessa as well. Ooh. She'd been more tired than usual. She brushed it off at first. Just stressed. Just busy season, she'll say. But one morning, as the scent of breakfast filled the kitchen and Brent and Ben worked outside, she leaned against the bathroom sink, a wide stick trembling in her hand. Two strong pink lines. Her breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't speak of the two miscarriages out loud very often. They had both scared her in ways that silence had only deepened. She remembered the hospital lights, the way Ben held her through the night without saying a word, the way her heart had quietly shut the door to hope. But now, here it was again, a fragile new beginning, like morning light on soft soil. That night, she waited until Brent had gone to bed, then stepped out into the living room, sat in front of Ben. Stretching forward the white stick with the two bright pink lines, Ben stared into her eyes, searching her expression, feeling a bit unsure of how to express what he's really feeling. Then he suddenly stood up, hugging her backways, with arms wrapped around her, just holding her with sweet joy and giving her solace. The next morning, Ben was excited. He could hardly wait to share the good news. He reached over and clapped Brent on the shoulder, telling him the glad tidings. For real? Gasped Brent. Brent laughed brightly, surprised and guarded. That's amazing! I have never been a big brother before, he said, looking around excitedly. Tessa reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You are already good at being part of this family, Brent. You are going to be an awesome big brother, she expressed. And in that sunlit kitchen, filled with the smell of buttered toast and morning joy, a family once shaped by heartbreak found itself made whole in the most unexpected way. The house had never felt more alive. Morning sun poured into the kitchen where Tessa sat at the counter, her fingers gently tracing the rim of a warm mug of ginger tea. The scent of toast, eggs, and faint cedar from the windowsill, herbs filled the room. Ben stood across from her, reading the latest article from a medical journal. But ever so often, his eyes lifted over the top of the page to check on her. Tessa was glowing, not in the way people always casually said pregnant women glow, but with a quiet radiance that seemed to grow from deep within. At 13 weeks, they started to breathe easier. Every small milestone in this pregnancy was a victory. After 4 years, 2 miscarriages, and so many silent prayers whispered into pillows, this new life growing inside her felt like sacred trust. A miracle. They both be doctors, people of science, still couldn't explain why this one held on when the others didn't. But they didn't question it anymore. Instead, they honored it. Brent had adjusted beautifully in the past months, though the grief of losing his parents was something that would never fully leave him. Being with Ben and Tessa have slowly brought pieces of himself back. He was enrolled in an art-based senior high school program starting that fall. Thanks to a portfolio Tessa encouraged him to submit, and the lodge had become a kind of home that none of them had planned, but all of them needed. Tessa wanted to tell everyone in person, and Ben agreed. It wasn't the kind of news you shared over a group text. They planned a small dinner at the lodge one Sunday evening. Long summer shadows stretched over the porch. Greg helped with the grill. Julie and Ashley were arguing over who made the better salad. These two sisters never stopped competing. Sam and Michael showed up with drinks and stories from their ER shifts. The friends who over the 4 years are now settled in America. Ashley and Julie, of course, no longer living in Jamaica as they have found themselves partners, loving husbands here in the United States, where they have relocated, already having their grandparents and other family. Greg as well, he have several TikTok hits that have made him viral, so now you can see him as a great content creator. They have graduated, move on, being doctors, while Ben, of course, he remained doing his residency. Now they meet every Sunday as promised 4 years ago. But yes, as we said before, Michael and Sam showed up with drinks and stories from their ER shifts. Even Tessa's father, Daniel, his wife, Lorna, and her two adult kids, Tessa's stepbrothers and sisters, they have fit neatly into Tessa's life. Tessa had long paused, being disgruntled about the sudden marriage, as they are now one big happy family. And Grandad Flynn, of course, were there, two strong men who had protected her with such quiet dignity her entire life. Mr. and Mrs. Jones have been in the know earlier out of the pregnancy. It would have been impossible to hide it from them. They have been supported, loving, and kind every step of the way, as they see each other daily and frequently. Unfortunately, they were able to make it this evening, as they have plans that they could not get out of, even though their hearts are right here. This evening have been something of magic. When the meal was done and laughter had filled the air enough to lower defenses, Ben reached for her hand and nodded slightly. Tessa stood slowly, hand cradling her barely there belly, shaped like an apple. She cleared her throat. I wanted to thank you all for being here. So now I'm getting the opportunity. And for being part of our family. We have been through a lot for the past few years. You all know that. The group went quiet. She looked at Greg first, then Brent, who already knew but sat grinning. Then her eyes found her dad's, then her friends, then Ben. We are pregnant, she exclaimed. The moment held the atmosphere and wrapped around the environment like a warm blanket. Then it erupted. Cheers, gaps, Julie bursting into tears, Ashley wrapping Tessa in a cheerful hug. Her grandfather, tears streaming quietly, came forward and placed on her shoulder. Your mother would have loved to see this day, my granddaughter, whispered Grandad Flynn, and Tessa melted. Even Michael, the normally sarcastic joker, got choked up and shook Ben's hand a little too tightly and said, You deserve this, man, both of you. Both him and Sam reached for Ben and captured him into a bear hug tightly. And before you know it, everyone was shouting congratulations, meeting, hugging, expressing their love. The months that followed, Tessa's pregnancy became slow, tender, as if it's a tender center around which everyone's life seems to turn. Ben was meticulous, monitoring every blood pressure, reading a nutrition log and sleep hour. He knew what could go wrong, but this time it didn't. Brent often brought her fruits in the afternoon and would sit by her feet drawing and sketching ideas for his final art piece. Sometimes they'll just sit in silence, his presence becoming one of her greatest comforts. Greg came by more often, seeing as he's now also living. He have relocated to the village. So he's around often. He even took her to one of her appointments when Ben had an emergency call at the hospital. It was a quiet gesture, but when he held her bag and sat through an ultrasound without screaming, she knew this boy too was becoming a man who understands family. Ashley, Julie, Sam, and Michael helped decorate the nursery. Soft green walls, sun-drenched the curtains, and a hand-carved crib made by Ben and Brent, filled with love. Carved with love. The gratitude and healing. On the night of Tessa's baby shower, held beneath the fairy lit trees at the lodge, Tess stood again before the group. She was 7 months along now. The baby moved consistently. I want this little girl to know she came into a world already filled with love, not just from her parents, but from uncles, aunts, and brother, and friends who became family. We waited a long time, and it was painful. But healing doesn't come when the pain disappears. It comes when the love becomes greater than the loss, expressed Tessa. Ben came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his hands gently on her tummy. To be continued. So guys, we will stop here for now. And oh my God, the story is warming my heart to see how as friends they have grown up together. They have shared so much hurt and pain and laughter. And now even Ben and Tessa, oh my God guys, for those of you who have been following this story, I know that you're feeling the sentiments and the joy as much as I am. To know that this couple, you know, they have been through it. Wanting children, to having miscarriages, to finding solace into a boy that have lost so much, that have become a part of the family. Guys, comment and let me know how you're feeling about the story. You know, so you over there, you have been watching for a while. You have been here for a while. What hinder you from subscribing? Come on, man. You watch already. Subscribe, like, and share. And like I always say, Philippians 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. So whatever you find to do today, do it to the best of your ability. Bye bye.